All right, so I think we'll start now, and other people will can join in the meanwhile. If you have any questions, any comment, you can just write on the chat window. I'll be okay to be interactive. So what we can do is I'll just start by introducing, and then as I said, like if you have any confusion, if there is something you want to describe more, I can change my narrative accordingly. Right. So again, let me thank you for joining this webinar, and let me present an opportunity to give my introduction and the introduction of the startup I run. So my name is Ankur Pandey. I am the founder of um, startup called UnFound. I have a background in the maths and engineering and computer science, and I have been active in the field of machine learning and data science since few years now, some 8-9 years. Apart from that, I also have an interest in public policy, and I realized because of these things that there is a problem of fake news and misinformation, and also realize that now the AI is at a stage that these things can be solved at least to some extent algorithmically. So it's an upcoming and exciting area of work. We are active in this field since slightly more than 1.5 years and have a product. So UnFound is the company I run, and this is basically an AI engine which tries to fight various aspects of misinformation. So this webinar is going to give you a very broad overview of what exactly is misinformation, what is its relationship to fake news, and what are some of the problems it causes, and how people are trying to solve it, including us at UnFound. Right. So misinformation is a combination of various things. Right. As you can see here, there are various, you can see, these sort of circles: biased, clickbait, fake, propaganda, misinformation. So you might have heard of things like fake news, right? Fake news is the most, so to say, common phrase when you hear. What is fake news? A lot of politicians and people with their own vested interest use fake news as term to for anything they don't agree with. But technically, what is fake news is something which is inauthentic, factually incorrect, fabricated. It could be a fake image, right? It could be a factually incorrect statement. It could be like Delhi is the capital of Russia, right? It is obviously obviously fake statement. But let's say I give you a statement saying Delhi's population is I don't know, like 1 crore, right? Is it fake? Maybe it obviously cannot be exactly 1 crore, but it is ballpark 1 crore. So arguably the fakeness of this particular statement is less than the first statement that Delhi is the capital of Russia. So it depends what you mean by fakeness, and we'll come to the nuances in a bit. Let me go with, as the slide says, the problem with news we kind of follow is that we don't know what is a fact and what is opinion. So, so and so politician is a great politician. This is not a factual statement. This is your opinion, right? Now, if I say so and so politician is a great sort of economist because he or she has done this thing. Now, this is still an opinion, but maybe less of an opinion than the first point, right? But the point is that when we see news, when we see anything in WhatsApp, in Facebook, in Twitter, wherever, right? This is like all garbled together. You cannot differentiate what is factual statement, what is opinion, what is weak opinion, what is strong opinion, etc. So it's as if that you're reading a particular website or a particular magazine, and they will present some facts, but then they will also bring in their opinion, and you will not be in a position, if you're an unassuming reader or an audience, that what is what, right? So this is a big problem. Now, easy to produce fake news and misleading content. So why it is easy to produce? So with the advent of new social media, like anybody can write anything, anybody can write any tweet, anybody can manipulate any image, any audio, video. It's very fast with the I believe most of you guys are from some kind of tech background, so you will have heard of things like deep fakes, and recently OpenAI's GPT-2. So these are the tools wherein you can actually mass produce fake news, fake images, fake text, fake videos, etc. It's very easy to produce. Now, the third point is large volumes of media makes manual scrutiny virtually impossible. So, how much of the news can you actually verify? So, I mean, there are obviously a value of editorial intervention, but there are two problems at least. One is just so large, and another that how do you ensure that the evaluators themselves are not biased? They are themselves are efficient enough, right? I mean, humans are fallible. We may not know everything, and we may have our own agenda. So this is due to these reasons, it's really important that there is some kind of automation possible. It is not even that automation will fasten the speed. It is also that there are, even if this humans work with a lot of speed, there's some kind of human biases which will creep in no matter what. And final point is that deceptive news can cause harm to people in organization. So there's one type of fake news which is like some innocently fake, so to speak. That there is let's say just giving repeating the previous example that Delhi is the capital of Russia. Now this is a laughably fake, or people making fun of politicians by associating them with all sorts of figure, whatever, right? So these kind of things are also fake. um, yeah, I'll just respond to your comment, Susmit. So these kind of things are also fake, but they may not be dangerous. Whereas there are you must have heard of mob lynching case due to fake news spread in WhatsApp, or also alleged Russian participation in US election. Now these are the things which actually cause harm to people, society, organization, country even as a whole. So this is very clear. I'm sure most of you would realize the problems associated. Now let me kind of take this Mr. Susmit's question. Is the model which is trained in a way generate news using AI and then feed to classify, repeat the process, then the classifier used to classify news as either genuine or fake used in UnFound? See, Susmit, there is no one like model to address things. It is a combination, and I'll come to the some overview in this call. I'll just try to invite or give a flavor of the things. It is not a very trivial problem, and as the most complex problem are, there's no one big shot classifier which can do things. Yes, you can divide the problems in a in a way that that part of the problem is tractable. Maybe you are interested to know if the text is toxic. Does it have abusive content? So for that you may write the classifier. But generally speaking of a classifier or any algorithm which detects biases to clickbaits, fake propaganda, deceptive news, so that's not possible. You have to break things down, and this is only about text. When you go to other things like audio, video, image, then the canon of form is even more. Right. So I hope I could answer. Now let's move to other sort of slide. Yeah. So just giving some kind of issues. It is now kind of recognized by people by and large that what are the monetary as well as perceptive problems with fake news. And so when I'm using fake news, I actually am meaning all types of problematic news, so to speak, not just fake news, and its cousins too. As we saw in the previous slide. So there are surveys done just to ensure that how many people today identify this as a problem. So you can see some of the stats here. There is actually money being lost. So you'll be surprised to know that Facebook and Twitter and even Google and YouTube, with all their tech glory, actually have a lot of technical and other policy problems, and they lose a lot of money. So therefore they have to tie up with people to help them, editors, other tech startups, other tech companies, to help them in that, right? So it's such a big problem that even Google and Facebook, with all their technical might, are not able to track it as efficiently as they should have. Now brands. So you must have heard of cases of Maggie and Tesla Motors, news spreading and then causing them harm, causing sales to drop. So there are all sorts of brands which every day face this problem. So Facebook and Twitter are the big ones, big social media platforms, which are the more famous example. But everywhere, whenever, let's say, I mean, as a as a society, as a person, it might be like, once in a while the harm is caused. But when it comes to actually brands, then we found out in our journey in UnFound that it's almost every day's problem, that they face problem, and then there is some kind of attack just because of this some kind of rumor, fake news, misinformation campaign being spread on about them. So Argdeep has asked, what are some of the novel approaches for someone just starting to explore deep learning or making a project on detecting fake news? So Argdeep, I think this is a very general question about starting on deep learning. First of all, I don't see that it's not that you learn deep learning and then you'll somehow solve fake news. It's a combination of various things. These questions I'll be happy to take offline. Feel free to write me or ping me on LinkedIn or any channel you would prefer, and we can sort of discuss it. Right. So yes, as Shubham says, stock market. Yes, stock market happens in every day. So I have kind of considered stock market, basically fluctuations as a general, general issue with the brands. But yes, specifically speaking, you can today, because of certain emotions, we saw this in this year itself, when Pulwama happened, and then all sorts of rumors started happening, and then other news, recent Kashmir news, election it especially happened. So we at UnFound were fortunate to be a part of misinformation kind of identification task force just before election, and we saw that how much it can move the perception, therefore stocks also. Right. Moving on. So this is a kind of cool infographic, or GIF of sorts, which actually says that how much the fake news spreads easily. So as you must have heard of this in a more idiomatic fashion, that bad news or wrong news spreads faster. But experiments actually demonstrate, the experiments which actually track the analysis, which actually track the sort of basically float influence and spread of information, all types of information on different types of social media, actually has shown that if there is some kind of news which has a potential to harm, which is kind of in some sense fake, false, misleading, tendency of that to spread is much larger than genuine and straightforward news. So this is an example. You can see, if you are able to read, that witness to truck ramming into pedestrian tell local Toronto TV station that the driver looked wide-eyed, angry, and Middle Eastern, right? So this tweet spread like anything. Another eyewitness, um, accurate account, and this is by the same person, by the way. It's not even by different influencers or different Twitter handles. Another eyewitness to the Yonge and Shepard incident describes van's driver as white, intentionally hitting people, describing it as a terror attack. So see the kind of clickbaity, or the sort of deceptive news, how much it has been shared and spread in the same matter of time, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., 5 hours, right? And see the magnitude of difference. So it has been established, like I was just trying to kind of establish that in more concrete and numerical fashion, that what are the actual problems with the types of fake news. If you have any example of fake news or falsified information, rumors, misleading information which you think has not been covered, just feel free to ping me, and if I do have some insights, I'll talk about them as well. Right. So moving on. Right. So at UnFound, we basically deal mostly at this stage with manipulation in text. But let me cover still, a broad sort of overview of what happens in images, video, and audio. Before that, Prateek Mehta asked that can this be considered as a biased news spreading? Yes, of course. So in this case, it is not just biased; it is actually outright false. Biased news is the type of news which has slight bent towards it. It might be still correct factual information, but it is kind of ignoring one side and kind of promoting other side. So that is actually even harder to track and even more dangerous sometimes. So there are all sorts of economic political debates, and wherein you can only pick one side which you favor and completely ignore the other side. So technically you are still correct, but you are biased, and this is very hard to crack. Yes, the tweets, the particular tweet you talk about, this is not. So I was in this case, in this particular case, the experiment by a given influencer at a given time was done to demonstrate to see the effect of a problematic, deceptive as well as fake tweet. It is all these elements, by the way, and see how does it compare to more straightforward, factually correct information, right? So this is just one of the examples. It is not by no mean a complete, this is just to illustrate what graphically speaking. So coming back, so I'll just cover some wide, kind of uh, comments on what happens when images, videos, and audio is manipulated. See, first of all, a lot of people when it is talked, when the fake news and related stuff is talked, associated with fake images, which is true, but there are a couple of things. Fake images, videos, audios, text, everything, there are problems in everything. But it turns out that the problem in textual information is, first of all, more widespread and has a lot of variations. Fake, and at the same time, when it comes to fake images and videos and audios, it is at this stage less algorithmically tractable. So I'll cover what are the few of the problems. So, detecting if the content seem edited, stitched, superimposed. So there is a funny, kind of image, or rather histogram, which was shared the other day, and I did not get a chance to share it here, but maybe if you're interested, I'll put it somewhere, which actually showed that the miracles, so to speak, the frequency of the miracles before camera was invented and after camera was invented dropped significantly, right? So before the camera was invented, which was about 1880s, the frequency of the reported miracles, so to speak, right, uncanny phenomena, was very high, right? There's no way to correctly check. There was only kind of, there were just sketches. There's no clear-cut actual photographic evidences. So for that, the reported or alleged miracles were very high. After the camera was invented, it actually dropped. And funnily enough, once things like image manipulation softwares and its cousins like Photoshops started to emerge, it again increased. So you can see that what is going on here. So a lot of problems when it comes to images and videos, because the true images and the true videos are taken and then they are kind of modified enough, edited, staged, superimposed, so as to give it a whatever color you want. So a lot of analysis or manipulation, and then thereby their identification goes into if this content is stitched, edited, etc. Then there is upcoming area because of this deep learning, and Argadeep, you asked the question. So deep fakes, which is basically generating the images or algorithmically generating the images and generating artificial images, so to speak, it has become a headache, and a lot of efforts is going on into. So you might have heard of this popular app called Face app, right? Which kind of generates, which basically changes your face to an old age or whatever, right? So this and that, so it's for fun, but then there are cousins which can kind of take a completely different flavor, give anybody's face, and basically give it and use it for any type of manipulation, political, sexual harassment, abuse, and whatever, right? So this is a big problem. There is still no like sure shot. There are obviously research, but there is no clear way to detect it. That And then there is a lot of investigation into how you can take some clue from the context in you. So I'll just give you sort of you know I'll tell you just what do I mean by this. Yeah, right. So for example, this, right? I mean, this is a kind of funny image, and I'm sure most people identify this as fake. But the idea is to why is it so obviously fake? Now, anybody who is clueless about who Donald Trump is, and this is obviously superimposition on Einstein's photograph, and but they, and not just that, there's a manipulation on the background blackboard also. So there is a, because of the context we know, and most people I assume would know that this has a multiple level of fakeness associated with it. So a lot of things can be ascertained by what the context is. So somebody either algorithmically or manually detecting the problem is this particular image should need to know, is it possible that the background and the photograph generally do, is it, what is the probability of them appearing together, and are there some some context in which, let's say, an image description algorithm would say this is an image of Donald Trump writing maths equation, which seems unlikely, right? So, and a lot of work goes into basically studying these things and trying to see keep fakeness or problematic content can be at scale discovered using such approaches. Now, I'll kind of confine it to the more widespread approaches in which we are tackling at in the first stages here at UnFound. So what we try to do at UnFound is to figure out if the content present in the web is authentic. This is the uh, first kind of pillar of what we try to take, which means that is it factually correct, right? Then we also say that it is not enough when it comes to text. It is not enough to be factually correct, right? If you talk about misinformation, it is easy that you just say, give a piece of information and hide other piece of information, be factually correct, but still somehow misinform your audience. So an example, um, if I were to tell you that Japan gave India a loan of 0.1%, right? So now for an Indian audience, it looks like a great achievement, right? And that such a low interest rate, etc. But once you know that Japan gives everybody an interest at such a low rate and even lower rates eventually, so because of this enriched context, the first news may not appear to be so magnanimous. And this is an example which classically happens in media. It happens every day. It happens without noticing. It cannot be considered to be technically fake, but we still consider it as a type of misinformation, right? Because it is kind of manipulation by giving actually correct information but still not telling the whole picture. So this is the kind of, in the this subheading succinct, we try to give a proper context, and then finally we say de-bias. Now, it is not to claim that somebody is unbiased is a tall claim, and I would argue that it is not even tall, it is unachievable claim, because biases is not something you can actually prevent humanly. So we realize that in order to fight that, right, one has to basically say the other side of the news. So as an example, if you are a voracious reader, hello Susmit, I think I'm not sure what your question is. When will it start? I'm sure, can you elaborate? I'll be happy to answer. What is the question you're asking? Missing context here. Anyway, coming back to this. So if there is a piece of news, you'll find in the media it being reported in a variety of colors, same incident happening, let's say recent 370. I'm not sure how many of you follow news and in detail, but the same thing which happened has a different color given by a lot of media. And this is not just in news. This happens across the spectrum. It happens in healthcare, it happens in within business, it happens in all sorts of text, right? So the job of an algorithm is to produce the counter view, right? A serious counter view, if you will, and then inform the reader accordingly. So when it comes to text, we see this a lot, and this can be prevented. Authenticity problem can be prevented by actually correcting, but then the other sides wherein either the context is missing or only one side is shown, this at least so far in our knowledge did not have a clear kind of answer, right? And it was, by a lot of people, it was not seen as a fake instance of fake news, but we think that it instance of fake news. But what is fake after all is what is meant to wrongly inform you, right? So detecting this has become one of the most important investment of our time, and you'll see a few snapshots later. So first of all, if you have any comments on the content I presented so far, if you agree, disagree, and feel free to say, and I'll definitely be happy to take them like in the interview. Now, moving on. Right. So this is, so we basically at UnFound, as I mentioned in the previous, a few minutes back, at UnFound basically is an AI engine which powers a lot of things. So UnFound app is one of the examples of this AI engine, and this is basically to first train and improve our algorithms and also to demonstrate the value we bring in. So you can actually use the app right now, it's live. And so this is one of the few, like, just to illustrate how we fight it. So as you can see, I mean, I'm not sure if this is hard to read, but any news today is broken down and analyzed into its positive, neutral, and opposing view, right? So as you can see in the left sides, um, there is a news piece, and that news piece is basically, first of all, this news piece, that the authenticity has been already checked, and then it is kind of broke. But even though, as we claim, even though authenticity is checked, so this is authentic, but even though it can have a bias, right? It is factually correct, still can have a bias. So our job here is to present all sides, right? And this is one of the neutral side, positive side, neutral side, and opposing side. Every topic has been kind of discovered. This is also an important facet. So previously somebody asked what are the classifiers. So I will, assuming that the most of the audience here is technical, or who will see this webinar later, will also be some either technical or will be interested in how these problems are tackled. So there's no one master algorithm. And part of the exercise we did in order to discover, when we set out to fight misinformation in text, was to figure out what is the background or the context behind it, right? And what are the latent topics behind it. So in the image in the center, you will see a lot of Arvind Kejriwal and AAP and Microsoft, etc. So these are the topics which are identified in the text. Then the top, so that at each topic, which is in this, everything is here is automatically generated, and each topic can be kind of further broken down into questions, and the answers can be discovered, and if there are biases, these can be discovered, and the authenticity can be checked. Because what the problem which happens is, if you give a huge piece of information, right, it will have a lot of things. It will not be like that directly. If I ask you a question that Nirav Modi's news, are they authentic? Now, this question is very ill posed, because what do you mean by which news, right? There are a lot of things going on. There is a lot of rumors, there is a lot of incorrect information, there is a lot of correct information, there's a lot of speculation, there is a lot of opinion, there is a lot of biases, there is a lot of propaganda, as well as there is a lot of a political agenda. So you have to break this down. And as well as in the same news which is allegedly about Nirav Modi, you can have a news about PNB also, you can have news about other types of issues also. So you have to separate these things. So we realize that we have to first do a lot of cleaning tasks. We have to separate any news piece into different buckets, and one by one we kind of take them head on, and then do an authenticity check, do a context check, do a bias check, etc. Right? So this, we feel, is the biggest kind of learning we have had, and the biggest and at least what we feel is that the biggest contributor to what will happen. So this is just to illustrate that what is going on. Um, so we, as I said, that the AI engine we have now, when I say AI engine, it's just to repeat, it's not a fancy term. It is basically a suite of various machine learning algorithms, right? And everything has like nuts and bolts has a different purpose. They work together seamlessly to do one task. They can be kind of modeled to do other tasks. So as of now, we are the AI engine is basically producing the news in UnFound app. Now, what we are seeing is that because of this news, because of user contributions and editorial contributions, the engine is getting repeatedly improved. And once that happens, the AI engine is becoming more and more powerful and can track even more complex tasks. So in few previous slides before, I talked about information which is important and deceptive for businesses, for governments even, right? So we will shortly be in a position to power those with the help and support of audience and readers like you who have used our app so far. We are actually planning to make something like Grammarly. Now I'm sure at least few people would have heard of Grammarly. So we are basically trying to make a plugin which at one click you just not just know the authenticity of the content, but also can know the other side and the missing context, etc. Right? Okay, let me again take Naman's question. How is authenticity determined by UnFound's engine? Brief answer will help as well. I'll just come to that. There is a slide showing it. So I'll just come to that in like a minute. Right. So moving on. Right. So see this example. For example, this is just a mock-up, and like we don't have a graphical thing like that so far because it's not directly used by public, but just to illustrate what's going on. So there is a news which says why Rajput women perform Johar only when defeated by Mughal and not Hindu kings. So very provocative article, right? Like says a lot of things in the clicks as well in the title itself. And but let's see what we at this stage can detect, right? We detect the fakeness. So you can see that algorithm has given 39% of the content here has factual inaccuracies. I'm not sure if you can actually read the short description, but it identifies, it goes sentence by sentence, analyzes content and see that 39% for a news piece like this is big, right? So it has 39% of actually incorrect statement. Now it has the clickbaitiness. Now again, clickbaitiness is something which is not factually incorrect, but is very sensational. It is designed for people to click. So it has designated it as something like 62% of the clickbaitiness. Opinionated. It has seen that how many of the content is actually opinion rather than pure fact. It has given us a score of 57%. Political bias. It has discovered that what kind of political leaning does this article have. Now it has seen, and I'm sure people among you who actually are aware of political and social news would agree that this is an conservative type of news title. So we are not taking any sides. This is not good or bad. This is just to inform you that what is it, right? And then counter views. We have detected about the same news 3 counter views. So basically, what is going on is that if you do this, like a lot of and a good well-read editor will also reach similar, if not the same conclusion. Maybe they are even better, right? But let's say if the task is to analyze hundreds and millions of articles at a go, so doing that in a more automated fashion is what we attempt, and this is the example of what we attempt at UnFound, and this also ties down as an answer to Naman's question. There's another slide we have on the similar lines. Just a second. Yeah. So this is what our approach for a Grammarly like plugin, which will be released a few months down the line, is going to be. So see, there is a BBC News viewpoint. Why Modi's currency gamble was epic failure. So as you can guess, this is a news about demonetization, 2017 news, and the author gives some kind of their own whatever viewpoints. There might be some facts also, and this particular has been discovered. These scores, factual inaccuracies 13%, so less factual inaccuracies here. Opinion is 57%, clickbaitiness is 29%, and political bias is economic left, right? Overall credibility is 68%. And then counter view, 3 articles found. So the point is that if let's say you are reading anything on the web and there is some kind of antivirus to the fake news or misinformation, right? Presented and gives you an alert. So how